The night was cold, darker than any she had known. The alien girl lay curled on the ground, her thin body pressed against rough stones that cut into her skin. For 16 nights she had slept like this, alone, hungry, and shivering. Each breath felt heavy, each heartbeat slower than the last. Her people had cast her out. She could still hear their harsh words echoing in her mind, words sharper than blades. They had said she was weak, unfit to live among them. So they pushed her away, leaving her to die in the wilderness. Now the stones were her bed, the stars her only witnesses. On the first night, she thought someone might come for her. Perhaps her mother would cry, perhaps her father would change his mind. But no one came. On the 5th night, she told herself she would walk back, beg them to take her again. But her feet were too sore, her pride too broken. By the 10th night, hope itself had started to fade. Her body was bruised, her lips dry, her stomach screaming for food. She drank from muddy puddles when she could. Sometimes she chewed bitter roots that made her sick. Yet still she clung to life, because something deep inside her refused to let go. Every night the forest whispered around her. Strange calls echoed through the trees, creatures moving in the shadows. She would lie awake, staring at the black sky, whispering to herself so she wouldn't lose her mind. "One more night," she said. Just one more. But 16 nights had passed. 16 nights on hard stones. 16 nights of pain, loneliness, and despair. Her body was failing, her mind near breaking. Tonight, the 17th, she no longer had the strength to whisper. Her eyelids grew heavy. She thought maybe this was it, her last night, her last breath. The world began to blur, but then she heard something. Footsteps. Slow, steady footsteps crunching over dry leaves. Not the light step of an animal, not the slither of a beast. These were heavy, deliberate. Someone was walking toward her. Her heart raced. Fear returned like a sharp knife. Who would come here? Was it her hunters? Had her people sent someone to finish what they started? She tried to push herself up, but her arms trembled and gave way. The footsteps came closer. A shadow stretched across the stones, long and human-shaped. She froze, too weak to run, too weak to scream. Then a voice, deep and calm, broke the silence. "You're still alive." She blinked. The figure stepped into the faint moonlight and she saw him. A human. Tall, broad-shouldered, with tired eyes that studied her carefully. He wore simple clothes rough from travel. His hands were calloused, his boots worn, but he stood like a man who had survived much. Her people had spoken of humans before. Some said they were dangerous. Others said they were stubborn creatures who never knew when to stop fighting. She had never seen one until now. Fear clutched her throat. She tried to crawl back, pressing her back against the stones. "Stay away," she whispered, her voice cracking. But the human did not move closer. He crouched a few steps away, his gaze steady. "You've been here a long time, haven't you?" he asked softly. She did not answer. Her throat was too dry, her heart too loud. The man looked at the stones where she lay, then at her trembling hands. Something shifted in his expression. Not pity, but something else. A quiet understanding. He reached into a pouch at his side and pulled out a small flask. Without a word, he set it on the ground between them, then leaned back. "Water," he said. "Take it if you want." Her eyes locked on the flask. Her lips burned with thirst. But still, she hesitated. Was it a trick? Was he like the others, offering false kindness before striking? The human didn't press her. He simply sat on the ground, his hands resting on his knees, waiting. The forest whispered again, but his presence felt heavier, calmer, as if the shadows themselves respected him. Minutes passed. Her body gave in before her mind did. With shaking fingers, she reached for the flask and brought it to her lips. The water was cool, clear, and it burned her throat in the sweetest way. Tears filled her eyes as she drank, drop by drop, until her hands could no longer hold the flask steady. The human quietly took it back, capped it, and placed it by her side. "Better?" he asked. She lowered her head, unable to meet his gaze. "Why?" she whispered. "Because no one should die on stones," he said simply. His voice carried no judgment, no cruelty, only truth. For the first time in 16 nights, warmth touched her chest. A tiny spark of hope, fragile but real. She closed her eyes, and for once the darkness did not feel so empty. But deep in the forest, something else stirred. Yellow eyes watched from the shadows, glowing faintly in the dark. The 17th night had only just begun. The morning sun rose slowly, cutting through the mist that clung to the forest. Dew sparkled on the stones where the alien girl had once laid her head. She woke with a jolt, half expecting the nightmare to continue, half expecting to see only emptiness. But this time she was not alone. The human sat near the fire he had built. Smoke rose into the pale sky, carrying the smell of something cooking. A simple pan rested on the flames, and inside sizzled a strip of meat. The sound made her stomach twist painfully. Her first thought was to run. She had survived 16 nights in the wild by trusting no one, but her legs trembled beneath her, too weak to take more than a step. The human noticed her movement and turned his head. "You're awake," he said, his voice calm, steady, not threatening. He pointed to the pan. "Food. You should eat." Her eyes narrowed. She remembered stories from her people, humans who tricked, who lured others in with kindness, then took everything. Was this one the same? Her lips parted, but no words came. She was too tired, too afraid. The human didn't push her. He cut the strip of meat in half, placed one piece on a flat stone, and slid it across the ground toward her. "Take it or don't, your choice." The smell of roasted meat filled her nose, sharp and irresistible. Her hunger was louder than her suspicion. Slowly, trembling, she crawled forward and picked up the food. Her hand shook as she bit into it. Warm juices filled her mouth, and for the first time in weeks she tasted real strength. Tears blurred her vision as she chewed. The man ate his half in silence, his eyes fixed on the fire. When she finished, she pulled her knees close, ashamed that she had eaten like an animal. He broke the silence. "What's your name?" She stiffened. A name meant trust. A name meant opening the door to who she was. Her people had cursed her name when they cast her out. But still, after a long pause, she whispered, "Lyra." The human nodded once. "Lyra, I'm Daniel, Daniel." A simple human name, yet it carried weight in the air. Lyra's voice cracked. "Why are you here? Why help me?" Daniel poked at the fire with a stick. "Because I found you, and because I know what it feels like to be left behind." The words hit her like a stone to the chest. For the first time, she looked at him properly. His face was tired, yes, but not cruel. His eyes carried something she hadn't seen in a long time. Understanding, yet doubt clung to her. "Humans. They're not supposed to care about others," she whispered. "That's what my people said." Daniel gave a small, humorless laugh. "Then maybe your people don't know humans very well." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Lyra hugged her arms tight around herself, as if trying to hold her fragile body together. Finally, Daniel stood. He walked to the edge of the clearing and looked out at the forest. "This place isn't safe. Too many eyes in the dark. If you stay here, you'll die." He turned back to her. "Come with me." Her chest tightened. The words echoed like a promise and a threat all at once. Go with him? Trust him? Or stay here and die on the stones? She shook her head weakly. I can't." "You can," Daniel said firmly. "You've already survived 16 nights. That takes strength. More strength than most. Strength." Her people had called her weak, had left her because of it. Yet here was this human telling her the opposite. The word lingered in her mind like a spark of light. He reached out his hand, not forcefully, just waiting. His palm was open, his fingers steady. "One step at a time," he said. Her eyes darted from his hand to the forest shadows. She thought of the yellow eyes that had watched her last night, the danger she had sensed. She thought of her empty belly, her shaking bones. And slowly, with a breath that trembled, she reached forward. Her hand touched his. Warmth spread through her skin. His grip was strong but gentle, pulling her up to her feet. Her knees wobbled, but he didn't let her fall. Together they walked away from the stones, into the unknown. As they moved deeper into the forest, the sounds around them grew louder, the rustle of leaves, the distant cry of creatures. Lyra kept glancing over her shoulder, fear pressing at her chest. Daniel noticed. "They won't touch us," he said. "Not while I'm here," but she wasn't so sure. The memory of glowing yellow eyes still haunted her. They reached a narrow path that cut through the trees. Daniel guided her carefully, slowing his steps to match her weakness. His presence was steady, like a wall shielding her from the darkness. Finally, the trees opened to reveal a small shelter, a crude hut built from wood and stone. Smoke rose faintly from a chimney. It wasn't much, but compared to the cold stones she had known, it looked like paradise. Daniel gestured to the doorway. "This is my place. You'll be safe here." Safe. The word felt strange on her tongue, almost unreal. She stepped inside slowly. The hut smelled of wood, smoke, and something warm. A blanket lay folded on a rough bed. She stared at it, her chest tightening. 16 nights she had slept on unyielding stone. And now before her was softness. Daniel's voice was calm but firm. No more stones. Tonight you sleep here. Her eyes widened. Your bed? He nodded. It's yours now. Her body shook. Not from fear this time, but from something she couldn't name. Gratitude, disbelief, maybe even the first flicker of trust. For the first time in many nights, Lyra felt a spark of hope. But far away, in the depths of the forest, hunters were moving. They had tracked her scent, and they were getting closer. The fire inside the small hut burned low, its light flickering against the rough wooden walls. Lyra sat near the edge of the room, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. She had eaten, she had drunk water, and for the first time in 16 nights she wasn't shivering on stones. Yet her mind could not rest. Daniel moved about the hut with quiet confidence, placing a pot over the fire, checking the walls, making sure everything was secure. His movements were steady, practiced, like a man who had survived many nights alone. Finally, he spoke. You should lie down. Her eyes darted to the bed. A rough but soft blanket lay neatly across it. It looked strange to her, like something from a world she no longer belonged to. Her people had left her with nothing but pain, and now this human offered her comfort she did not trust. She shook her head. I will sleep on the floor. Daniel raised an eyebrow. The floor is no better than the stones outside. You need rest. I don't deserve it, she whispered. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Her throat tightened. That was what her people had told her again and again, that she was not worthy. Daniel crouched down, his voice firm but gentle. Listen, no one deserves to sleep on cold stones. Not you. Not anyone. She looked away, shame burning in her chest. But his words sank deep, breaking through the wall she had built around her heart. The fire crackled, filling the silence. Then, without another word, Daniel lifted the blanket and set it aside. He patted the bed. Rest, tonight this bed is yours. Her stomach nodded. Her people had always warned her about humans, that they would take what they wanted, that they could not be trusted. Was this his trap? Was this where his kindness ended? She stared at him, her voice shaking. Why are you doing this? What do you want from me? Daniel didn't flinch. He held her gaze with calm eyes. I don't want anything from you. You need help. That's enough reason. The simplicity of his answer unsettled her. No hidden agenda, no cruel smile, just truth. She tried to read his face, but all she saw was a tired man who had chosen to share what little he had. Slowly, carefully, she stepped toward the bed. Her body shook as she lowered herself onto it, the rough fabric softer than she imagined. Her head sank into the small pillow and she almost gasped. After 16 nights on stones, this felt like sinking into clouds. Her eyes filled with tears she didn't understand. She pulled the blanket close, holding it like a shield. Daniel turned away, giving her space, and sat by the fire. For the first time in many nights, her body relaxed. Her eyelids grew heavy, and before she knew it, she drifted into sleep. But her sleep was not empty. Dreams came. In the dream, she was back with her people. They circled her, their voices sharp, their eyes filled with hate. Weak, they chanted. Unworthy. Cast her out. Stones rained down on her, bruising her body, crushing her spirit. She curled into herself, screaming silently. Then, in the dream, a hand broke through the circle. A human hand. Strong, steady. It pulled her from the stones, lifting her into the light. She woke with a start, her chest heaving. The fire was low, and Daniel sat where he had before, watching the flames. The nightmare still clung to her, but the bed beneath her reminded her it was not real. Daniel glanced at her. Bad dream? She swallowed hard, nodding. You're safe here, he said quietly. The words hit her harder than she expected. Safe. She had forgotten what that word even meant. She lay back down, pulling the blanket tighter. For the first time in weeks, she let her eyes close without fear. Outside, however, the forest was not silent. Yellow eyes glowed faintly in the dark, moving between the trees. The hunters had found her trail. They moved like shadows, their bodies low, their steps silent. One of them lifted his head, sniffing the air. His lips curled back into a smile that revealed sharp teeth. She's close, he whispered to the others. The exile cannot hide forever. The group of hunters slithered through the trees closer and closer to the hut. Inside, Lyra stirred in her sleep, unaware. But Daniel's eyes flicked toward the door. He had heard something, faint, distant, but real. His body tensed, his hand moving toward the knife at his belt. He did not wake Lyra. Not yet. The night was quiet, but danger was moving. The 17th night was not over. The morning light slipped through the cracks in the hut, soft and golden. Lyra stirred, her body sinking deeper into the rough but warm blanket. For the first time in what felt like forever, she hadn't woken with aching bones or icy skin. For the first time in 16 nights, her body had known comfort. But comfort also brought something else, memories. She sat up slowly, rubbing her tired eyes. Across the room, Daniel was already awake. He sat by the fire, sharpening a blade with steady strokes. The sound of stone against steel echoed in the quiet hut. He glanced up when he noticed her. "Morning," he said simply. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself. The word felt strange. Morning, as if this was an ordinary day, as if she hadn't been left to die only nights ago. Daniel placed the blade aside. "Did you sleep well?" Her lips trembled. She wanted to say yes, but the memories made it impossible. "I dreamed," she whispered. He nodded, not pushing for more. "Dreams are heavy when you've been through too much." His words were calm, but they struck her. He spoke as if he understood. And maybe he did. She lowered her head, her voice breaking. "Do you know why I was out there? Why I had to sleep on stones?" Daniel leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. "If you want to tell me, I'll listen." Silence filled the room. For a long time, Lyra hesitated. To speak was to open wounds. But a part of her wanted him to know, wanted someone, anyone, to finally hear her truth. "My people," she began, her voice small. "They said I was weak. I wasn't born like the others. They are strong, fast, their bodies built for battle. Mine," she touched her thin arms. "Mine was different, slower, fragile. They said I brought shame." Daniel's eyes darkened, but he said nothing, letting her continue. "They cast me out. They made me walk into the forest with nothing. They told me the stones would be my grave. And I believed them." Her voice cracked, tears filling her eyes. 16 nights I believed them. The confession spilled out raw and heavy. Her chest heaved with every word, as if the pain itself was leaving her body. Daniel let the silence settle before he spoke. His tone was steady, like solid ground beneath her feet. They were wrong. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide. "Wrong? You're alive," he said simply. 16 nights out there, no food, no shelter, no one to help. And still you're here. That isn't weakness. That's strength." Her lips parted, but no words came. All her life she had been told the opposite. Weak, worthless, cast out. And now this human, someone she had known for only one night, spoke to her as if she mattered. Her tears spilled freely. Why would you say that?" "Because it's true," Daniel replied. "I've seen soldiers stronger than stone fall after 2 nights in the wild. But you survived. Don't let their lies bury you." The fire popped, sending sparks upward. For a moment, Lyra let the warmth of his words sink in. A fragile hope stirred in her chest, though fear still clung to it. She wiped her eyes with the blanket, her voice still shaky. "Even if I live, they won't stop. They'll come for me. They'll make sure I don't return." Daniel's jaw tightened. He reached for his knife and tested its edge. "Then they'll find me in their way." Her breath caught. No one had ever spoken for her like that before. Not her family, not her people. No one had ever stood between her and danger. But she also knew the truth. "You don't understand," she whispered. "They aren't just hunters, they were trained to kill the unworthy. It's their duty." Daniel looked at her, his eyes steady. "Then it's my duty to stop them." The hut felt too small for the weight of those words. Lyra's heart pounded, fear and something else mixing in her chest. She wanted to believe him, but belief was dangerous. Belief could break her again. Still, when she looked into his eyes, she saw no doubt. Only certainty. Before she could answer, a noise broke through the forest outside. A low howl, long and sharp, carried on the wind. Lyra's blood froze. She knew that sound. The hunters were close. Daniel stood, grabbing his pack and weapons in one swift motion. "Stay inside," he ordered. "No," she said quickly, her voice trembling but firm. "They'll smell me. They'll know I'm here." He looked at her, measuring her words. Then he nodded once. "Then we prepare together." He handed her a short blade. It felt heavy in her weak hands, but she gripped it anyway. The memory of her people calling her weak burned in her mind. Maybe tonight she could prove them wrong. Not to them, but to herself. Daniel began setting traps near the doorway, his movements fast and efficient. He poured oil on the ground, laid sharp sticks hidden beneath leaves, and tightened his grip on his knife. Lyra's chest rose and fell rapidly. Fear screamed at her to run, but a different voice whispered louder now. The voice Daniel had given her. You survived. You're strong. As the howls grew louder, she stood beside him, the blade trembling in her grip. For the first time since she had been cast out, she was not alone. The past was chasing her. But the future now stood at her side. And outside the hut, the hunters closed in. The forest was no longer quiet. The howls grew louder, echoing between the trees. A chilling call that made even the birds fall silent. Lyra clutched the short blade in her hands, her knuckles white. Every sound outside the hut made her chest tighten. Daniel stood near the doorway, his body steady, his eyes fixed on the shadows outside. His knife gleamed in the dim light. He didn't move, didn't flinch, as if he had been waiting for this moment all along. They're close, Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel nodded. Yes, but they'll find we're ready. Her stomach twisted. She remembered those voices, those glowing yellow eyes. They weren't just hunters, they were enforcers, trained to kill the weak and erase shame from their clan. To them, she wasn't even a person. She was a mistake that needed to be removed. Leaves rustled outside. Footsteps, light but deliberate, circled the hut. A low growl followed, deep and hungry. Lyra froze. Daniel motioned with his hand, telling her to stay back. He crouched low, gripping his knife tighter. The fire inside the hut dimmed, the shadows stretching long across the walls. Then a voice came, smooth and cruel. Exile. The word slithered through the night, cold and sharp. Lyra's heart stopped. She knew that voice. Varric. The one who had led the chant against her, the one who cast her out. You've hidden long enough, Varric said, his tone mocking. 16 nights was a gift. Now it's time to finish what should have been finished before. Lyra's hands shook, but Daniel's voice cut through the fear. Calm, steady, unshaken. She's not alone anymore. Silence followed, heavy and tense. Then laughter, harsh and cruel, echoed outside. A human? Varric sneered. You think you can protect her human? She is nothing. Weak. Worthless. She doesn't deserve to live. Daniel stepped forward, his eyes hard. Then she deserves me more than she ever deserved you. The growls outside deepened. Shadows moved quickly, circling the hut. Daniel's trap snapped. The sound of a scream followed, sharp and short. One of the hunters had fallen into a pit of spikes he had hidden beneath the leaves. The others hissed with anger. The ground shook with their movements as they closed in. Daniel turned to Lyra. Stay close. Don't run. If they get through, strike fast. Her throat tightened. I can't fight them. You can, Daniel said firmly. You're stronger than you know. Believe me. His certainty lit a fire in her chest even as fear gnawed at her bones. The door shook as claws scraped against the wood. The hut groaned under the weight of the attackers. Daniel braced himself, ready. With a deafening crack, the door splintered. A massive figure burst through, the hunter Varric himself. His eyes glowed yellow, his teeth bared in a snarl. Behind him, 2 more shadows lurked. Lyra stumbled back, but Daniel stepped forward, knife in hand. He moved fast, faster than she thought a human could. He slashed upward, catching one of the hunters across the arm. The alien roared, stumbling back into the firelight. Varric sneered, his claws flexing. You think you can stop us, human? This is not your fight. Daniel's jaw tightened. It is now. The hut erupted into chaos. Varric lunged at Daniel, claws slashing through the air. Daniel ducked, rolling to the side, his knife flashing in quick strikes. The second hunter charged at Lyra. Her chest froze. Her body wanted to collapse. But Daniel's words rang in her ears. You're stronger than you know. She lifted her blade with trembling hands. The hunter swiped at her, claws grazing her arm, but she slashed back wildly. To her surprise, the blade cut deep across his shoulder. The alien howled, staggering back. Her heart raced. She had drawn blood. Daniel fought fiercely, using the traps he had laid. He shoved Varric into the spilled oil on the floor and kicked a spark from the fire. Flames roared upward, licking at Varric's skin. The hunter screamed, thrashing as the fire burned. The others hissed, dragging him back, their yellow eyes glowing with fury. This isn't over, Varric snarled as he pulled away, smoke rising from his scorched body. We will return, human. And when we do, she will die screaming. With that, the hunters retreated into the forest, their shadows melting back into the darkness. Silence filled the hut again, broken only by the crackle of fire and Lyra's ragged breathing. She stared at her trembling hands, the blade still slick with blood. Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. You fought, he said. And you lived. Her eyes filled with tears, her chest heaving. For the first time in her life, she felt something new, something she had never known. Pride. Daniel met her gaze, steady and sure. They'll come again, he said quietly. But next time we'll be ready. Lyra nodded, her fear still there, but now mixed with something stronger. She wasn't alone anymore. She wasn't weak anymore. The hunters had come, but she had survived. And the fight was only beginning. The night felt heavier than ever. Smoke still lingered in the hut after the attack, the smell of burned wood and scorched flesh mixing with fear that clung to the air. Lyra sat by the fire, her body trembling though her blade was still in her hand. She kept staring at it as if the blood stain on the edge would vanish if she looked long enough. Daniel moved quietly around the room, fixing the broken door with quick, sharp motions. His face was calm, but his eyes carried steel. He knew they would be back. They won't stop, Lyra whispered. Her voice was hoarse, cracked from fear. They'll return with more. Daniel paused, then nodded. Yes, they will. She looked at him, desperate. Then why not leave? Why risk your life for me? He set the wood in place, hammered it down, and then turned to her. His voice was steady, because no one deserves to fight alone. The words silenced her. She lowered her head, clutching the blanket tighter. For years she had carried her shame alone, her exile alone. Now someone stood beside her, and it terrified her more than the hunters. The forest outside howled again. The sound was closer this time. Multiple voices, low and cruel. Daniel grabbed his pack. They'll come before dawn. We make our stand tonight. He began handing her small objects, stones tied with strange powder, wooden stakes sharpened into spears. Use these when they're close. Don't hesitate. Her hands shook as she held them. I'm not a fighter. Daniel crouched in front of her, his eyes locked on hers. Neither was I once. You fight because you must, not because you want to. That's what makes you stronger. Before she could answer, the first roar shook the trees. The ground vibrated as heavy footsteps pounded the earth. Shadows circled the hut again, but this time there were more of them. The door shuddered under the weight of claws and fists. Daniel stood firm, knife in one hand, a torch in the other. Stay behind me until I say otherwise, he ordered. The door splintered, this time completely. 5 hunters poured inside, their eyes glowing like fireflies in the dark. Varric led them, his scorched body still marked by flames, his expression twisted with rage. Kill the human first, he snarled. They rushed forward. Daniel moved like lightning. He hurled one of the powder stones to the ground, and a blinding flash filled the hut. The hunters cried out, covering their eyes. Daniel charged, stabbing one in the chest before spinning to block another's claws. Now, Lyra, he shouted. Her heart pounded. She threw one of the powder stones at a hunter. It exploded with smoke, sending the creature coughing and stumbling back. For the first time, she felt control, not fear. But Varric was different. He pushed through the smoke, his claws slashing at Daniel. The two collided, their struggle shaking the small hut. Wood cracked, firelight flickered wildly. Lyra gripped her blade tighter. Fear screamed at her to hide, but Daniel's voice rang in her head. You fight because you must. When one of the hunters lunged at Daniel's back, Lyra ran forward, slashing her blade across its arm. The alien shrieked, spinning toward her. She stumbled but didn't drop her weapon. She stabbed again, this time deeper. The hunter collapsed with a roar, and she stood frozen, chest heaving. Daniel's voice cut through the chaos. Good. But Varric's roar silenced everything. He grabbed Daniel by the throat, slamming him against the wall. You think you can protect her? You'll die for this, human. Daniel struggled, his knife falling from his grip. His face reddened as Varric's claws pressed harder. No, Lyra screamed. Something inside her snapped, the same fire that had kept her alive on the stones. She rushed forward, driving her blade into Varric's side. Once, twice, again. Varric roared in pain, dropping Daniel. His eyes burned with hatred as he staggered back. Exile! You dare— But Daniel had already recovered. He grabbed his fallen knife, leapt forward, and drove it into Varric's chest. The hunter's scream shook the walls before his body collapsed to the ground. Silence. The other hunters froze. Their leader lay dead at their feet. They hissed, retreating into the shadows. One by one they vanished into the forest, their glowing eyes fading. The hut was wrecked, the fire burning low, but the night was theirs. Lyra dropped her blade, her body shaking. She fell to her knees, gasping for breath. Daniel staggered to her side, blood trickling from his lip, but his eyes were steady. "You did it," he said softly. Her chest heaved. "No, we did it." For a long moment they sat in silence, listening to the forest's uneasy calm. The hunters were gone for now, but something had changed. Lyra looked at Daniel, her eyes wet with tears. No one has ever fought for me like that." Daniel managed a tired smile. "Get used to it." She laughed softly, broken but real. For the first time in her life, she believed she might truly survive. The 17th night had ended not with death, but with a fight that gave her hope. And as dawn approached, she knew her life would never be the same. The first light of dawn touched the forest, spreading golden beams through the trees. Smoke curled lazily from the broken hut, carrying with it the bitter scent of battle. The air was heavy, filled with silence, the kind of silence that comes only after a storm. Lyra sat on the ground, her back against the wall, her chest rising and falling in shaky breaths. Her blade rested beside her, stained and dull, but she didn't let go of it. Her hands still trembled, not from fear anymore, but from the weight of what had just happened. Across the room, Daniel leaned against the doorway, his knife still in hand. Blood marked his cheek, his shirt torn, but his stance was steady. His eyes scanned the trees outside, watching for movement. The hunters had fled, but danger never disappeared so easily. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The crackle of dying flames filled the space between them. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. "They'll come again," she whispered. Her voice was soft, fragile, but not hopeless. Daniel turned to her, his expression calm but firm. "Maybe, but we'll be ready." Her lips parted. She had expected him to say, "You must be ready," or "Run while you can," but instead he said "we." A word she had not heard in so long it felt almost unreal. Her eyes stung. "Why? Why do you fight for me?" Daniel stepped forward, crouching in front of her. His voice was quiet, but each word carried weight. "Because no one deserves to be thrown away. Not you, not anyone." Her throat tightened. For so long she had believed she was nothing, weak, worthless, unwanted. Yet here was this human, a stranger, who looked at her as if she mattered. She tried to speak, but her voice broke. I thought I would die on those stones." "But you didn't," Daniel said firmly. "You lived. You fought, and that makes you stronger than all of them." His words sank deep, burning through every wound, every scar. For the first time, she didn't feel like an exile. She felt like someone who had survived. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't hide them. Daniel didn't look away. He let her cry, let her release the pain she had carried for so long. When her tears slowed, she whispered, "What happens now?" Daniel glanced toward the forest. The sun climbed higher, painting the world in light. "Now you choose. You can keep running, or you can walk beside me." Her breath caught. Walk beside him. The words were simple, yet they opened a door she had never imagined existed. She looked at him, at the tired but steady man who had given her water, food, fire, and hope. Her voice trembled, but the answer was clear. "I don't want to run anymore." Daniel gave a small nod as if he had known all along. He extended his hand. "Then walk with me." Her heart pounded. She stared at his hand, remembering the night he had first offered it. Back then she had hesitated, trapped by fear. Now she reached out without doubt. Her fingers slipped into his and warmth spread through her chest. For the first time she felt safe. They stepped out of the hut together, the forest alive with the sounds of morning. Birds sang, leaves rustled, and the golden light painted everything fresh and new. Lyra paused, looking back once at the place where she had slept, fought, and almost died. The stones where she had once curled in despair were now far behind her. Ahead was something she had never known before, a future. She turned to Daniel. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled, tired but genuine. "Don't thank me. Just keep moving forward." They walked down the path side by side. The forest no longer felt like a prison. It felt like a beginning, But far away, deep in the shadows, other eyes watched. The hunters had retreated, but their hatred had not died. They would return, stronger and angrier. Yet for now, Lyra didn't care. For the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid. The human had invited her into his world, not with chains, not with force, but with kindness. And as the sun rose higher, Lyra knew one thing with certainty: she would never sleep on stones again.